Welcome back to BTL Productions. So, Donald Trump and newly appointed Prime Minister Mark Carney had a conversation on the phone today, and it seems to be signaling some big changes in the Canadian-U.S. relations. And this is going to be of particular interest to those in the automotive sector. So let's roll the intro and get right into this. Welcome back, guys. So let's get the show on the road here. So I'm going to first say that I don't want to take too much stock in what was said here because, as we know, Donald Trump changes from day to day and sometimes from one end of the day to the other. So we'll see. But this seems to be some of the most positive news to come out of this whole debacle since it started. So Trump and Mark Carney, who is a newly appointed Prime Minister of Canada, who will be going into an election in about a month's time here, he had his first conversation with Donald Trump. They both came out of it saying that they had both made positive progress. It had been a very productive meeting. And nothing really concrete was given out in here, but it was certainly much more positive than some of the things that we heard when Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was the Prime Minister. Let's analyze this a little bit. First of all, he called Mark Carney Prime Minister. At some points, he referred to him by his first name, Mark. Definitely different than we heard before when he was calling Justin Trudeau governor and the head of the 51st state, et cetera, et cetera. He clearly did not like Justin Trudeau. That was very evident, and he certainly didn't try to hide it. So both of them believe that the meeting was very productive. Now, I saw an interview also. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he worked very closely with Donald Trump in the first administration. And he said he has some insight into Donald Trump and how he works behind the scenes. And he seemed to think that when he sees a country that he likes and he likes the leader of the country and he believes that they are seeing things eye to eye, he can tend to be more almost lenient on them. We'll point to Vladimir Putin of Russia, who the two of them have clearly gotten along very well here too. So that was kind of an interesting analysis. Personally, from my perspective, I think part of the thing is that they're both businessmen. Mark Carney comes from a finance background, so they can clearly see eye to eye on this as well. So, for some reason, the other candidate, Pierre Poilievre, who's running for the Conservative Party in Canada, which would be the equivalent of the Republican Party in Canada, he doesn't seem to like him. Now, Poilievre has said some things that weren't too complimentary about Trump. However, justified or not, there was a lot of mudslinging going on with Trump in Canada at the time. So I could say that there is some justification to the way he was speaking. But clearly Trump didn't think so. He spoke of Mark Carney and their discussion, and it says beginning of talks. Like I said, didn't give any details, but he said that we'll talk some more after the election. For some reason, he seems to think Mark Carney's going to win this election, but we'll see. We're still long enough away from the election that a lot of things can change, even though the polls are stating and falling in the direction of Mark Carney. We'll see what happens in the end there. Now, I also want to point to the Premier of Ontario, which should be the equivalent of your governor in the U.S. He went to Washington recently, spoke to Lutnick, and they had a very good conversation as well. And he seems to, Ford, that is, speak well of that conversation as well. And he came out yesterday indicating that Lutnick had said that the tariffs for Canada are more likely to fall in the range of about 12.5%. Still a very high percent tariff, but much lower than the 25% that Trump came out and said just days after this meeting. Trump does like to get attention. He knows how to pull the media in and get himself media coverage. And I think saying 25% was part of the reason. Part of the reason he did that was to get attention, and it would get more attention than the 12.5% as possible might. But I also want to discuss Trump knows the influence he has. And I'm sure he watches the news a lot. He's mentioned on many occasions. I'm sure that he knows that Canadian voters are watching this interaction between Canada and the U.S. very closely. And one of the big factors that's going to play a huge role in who Canadians vote for is going to be who they think can handle Donald Trump the best. And if Trump likes Mark Carney the best, I wouldn't put it past him to try to push some of the Canadian voters in that direction. We'll see. And it is important, especially right now with these automotive tariffs that are being threatened, that we have a leader in Canada that can have good relations with the U.S. The U.S. and Canada have had good relations for many years, so it would be a shame to see a lot of that go down the toilet. It is one thing that's rather odd about it, the whole situation, though, I find, is the fact that Donald Trump is a Republican, a conservative, and Mark Carney is a liberal, but that would be the equivalent of the Democratic Party in the U.S., as I said earlier. And why would Donald Trump want a Democratic style prime minister in Canada? Well, I don't always entirely believe that Donald Trump is entirely a conservative. I think Donald Trump is a man who the person is more important to him necessarily than the party affiliation. I will point to examples like times that he's endorsed Democratic candidates in the past because he liked them. I will point to Hillary Clinton, which in one of the primaries, he actually endorsed her. I think it was in 2008, quite some time before he actually ran against her in the 2016 election. But Donald Trump was known to be very close friends with the Clintons as well. So I think the personality and the person is much more important to Trump than maybe some people are giving it credit. So that being said, I think this mess in time will be straightened out. I think there will be a lot of turmoil in the meantime. And I think tariffs still will be imposed. But what Trump needs to understand is the interconnectivity of the Canadian and U.S. auto sector. They are much more deeply connected than I think he even realizes. I don't think he has a full understanding of how the automotive sector works. And having this interconnection has worked for decades and has helped both countries and brought down costs of vehicles for both countries. Now, let's look at Mexico. I think that is the one he needs to be looking at more closely, because if any country is going to threaten American jobs, it's going to be Mexico, because of the huge disparity in wages between these two countries. Mexico can put together and assemble a vehicle for far less cost than either Canada or the U.S. I think that's where the playing field needs to be leveled a bit, but it doesn't need to be leveled to you need to be careful how far you level it, because you don't want to drive up the cost of the vehicles to ridiculous proportions, as have some of the analysts have been predicting, anywhere from $4,000 to $15,000 increases in prices if you include these tariffs. So I think there needs to be a lot of balance found here. And really, realistically speaking, with the Canadian dollar is worth less than the U.S. significantly at the moment. Keeps going up and down with the stock market. Fluctuations lately, goes up and down from one day to another, and you never know where it's actually going to end up. But with the weaker Canadian dollar, with the healthcare system in Canada that the government pays for, that actually drives down healthcare costs for the company as well. So it all balances out in the end. And vehicles and parts, they cross the border so many times when they're leading up to final assembly, that to unravel all that would cause huge disruption to the automotive sector. I mean, it could lead to the point where you could have factories shut down in U.S. and Canada. So do you really want to go down to get to that point? I don't think so. I think you need to work with both sides, create a deal that's going to be both good for both countries, and worry about Mexico and China, because those are your real threats. Anyhow, that's my 2 cents, my view from behind the wheel for today. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think. You think I'm on the right path with my opinions here? Do you think I'm out in left field? Do you think there's parts that you agree with, parts you don't agree with? Love to hear from you. Please keep the conversation constructive. And as always, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show